this is not how we had hoped to get started for the school year, but we're trying our best to make sure we accommodate and follow the rule of the law and make sure you guys get your unencumbered time in your classrooms before the school year starts. And so we had to cancel our meeting set for next Monday. And with that being said, I just wanted to kind of talk you through some things and remind you of some pieces that'll get you started until we can meet together face to face. So, one thing I want to mention is when we think about what and who is new. So, the first what that is new is that how students, and we had talked about this a little bit at the end of the school year last year, but one of the things that has changed is how students are scheduled in Power School. And this new change is taking a little bit of growing pains, but it's okay. With this, you'll no longer have one consult class with all of your students in it. You're going to have a course that is like a consult class that will say pull out, co teach, monitor, wave, and push in. And so the consult 2.0 version will be based off of the service model that those students are receiving from you for this coming school year. We've been working with your counselors to make sure that's getting scheduled. Some are still working on it. Actually, had just got off the phone with one school that was working on it. And what I wanted to remind you is that we're working on it, so be patient. And when you look at your schedule, one thing that's going to be true now is that you all will be able to log into Power School. And just like a classroom teacher, you're going to have those sections listed and you'll be able to look at those students and see all of their information there. So, with that, it's just a little piece that's different that we're working through. But if you see someone and you're like, well, really, I'm only going to see them in pull out sessions, okay, and they're marked as push in. Okay, well, then you just need to let whomever at your school that handles all the Power School sections and coursing and coding and that sort of thing, you'll need to just let them know so they can make that change. And so that's huge. The other piece that has not been completed yet, which is the new ML codes for like English proficiency codes, those have not been entered yet. So at this moment, when you log in, it's still going to have last year's code information, and that's just because just haven't had a chance to get to it. But we're getting there, trying to work through a system that'll help us for the future. But for right now, they're not updated. So just a little heads up there. So, with that being said, who is new? And so, new to our team. So, this is the Powdersville team. And so, here you see we have Melissa that will be teaching point 0.5 and then point 0.5 as she has been supporting you guys in the coaching type position. Juliana, Nancy, and Joby will round out the Powdersville team. Concrete will be Abby and Kristen Merritt. Kristen is new to our team. She's been teaching at Concrete and teaching kindergarten. And so she's joining our team, and I'm very excited to have her a part of our team. Then Powdersville High is Rachel Loftus and Evelyn, and so Evelyn Martinez. And then Powdersville Middle will be Kathleen, of course, and then Giselle. Giselle will be new. Giselle has been working previously as a nurse, and she's coming into the pathway of education. She worked a year or two ago at Powdersville High with Miss Carter, and so now she's at that point of being able to earn her certification and become a certified classroom teacher. And so she will be working with Kathleen, and that is great. And we're very excited because we know she's going to learn a lot. Then when we go to Wren, Wren Elementary is looking a little different this year. And so with that, Amanda Bernstein will be working at Wren in the afternoons, and Krista McClure will be working there in the mornings. And so they'll be covering the students there at Wren. Spearman, Melissa finally gets some extra help for all the new friends at Spearman. And so Heather Holler has been teaching middle school ELA for a number of years. And so I'm very excited to have Heather come and join our team. And she'll be working predominantly in the morning at Spearman with Melissa. And so that's exciting. And then Mandy is back with Hunt Meadows in the morning time. Kim is holding down the fort at Wren Middle, and Amy Lanford is also working still at Wren High School. Palmetto High School, our Palmetto feeder system, we got a couple of little changes here. Palmetto Elementary, Kelly is there still. Lindsay is moving from Cedar Grove to Palmetto Elementary, so really excited to see them pair up. And Maggie Taylor and Amanda Gerard will be the classroom teachers in our emerging bilingual program. And Becky will be supporting them in the morning. Amanda and Maggie and Becky will be, and Magnolia will be doing a as close to dual language as we'll be able to get and in our district. And so with that, they're going to be focusing on teaching the reading mini lesson in English and in Spanish, and then supporting the phonological awareness pieces that the students need in order to develop the full repertoire of reading skills. And so, very excited for what's going to happen at Palmetto Elementary. And that means at Cedar Grove, we have Megan Lundeen, which I'm super excited to have her join our team. And she's already off to great heights and doing great work. So, super proud of what she's doing. And Jordan is joining us from West Pelzer, and I'm very excited about that. And she's going to do great things and bring some really good classroom experience to the area. And I'm excited for her to come in and just take over West Pelzer after a piecemeal year last year. And then at Palmetto Middle School, we have Jill Wilson and Julie Bryant. And so they're going to continue their hard work and looking forward to what they can do this coming school year. And then at Palmetto High School, we have Sonia Pack, Wesleyka Johnson Rock. Chris Gerard is still 0.5, and Becky Owens will be coming over in the afternoons as a 0.5 to work with students on building some of those phonological and basic grammar skills that students sometimes miss when they come in later in their educational career. So she is piloting a new program and really excited to see what it can do for our high school friends. So this rounds out our team this year, and we continue to have the amazing Nye Riddle and Gabby Brady and Chandi Patel to help us with our ML friends that that need some support with their families, and so that's really exciting. And so this is what our team's looking like. And Acela Green, of course, will be in this team working with people as they come up. And so I'm really predominantly focusing her on a lot of help down at Cedar Grove. And then also, too, just in other pockets around the district as they come in, and which they have. So we've had some students move away, and a couple of those students that's moved away have brought tears to my eyes because of personal connections with them, but we are continuing to add new students regularly. So, with all that being said, that's what and who is new. So, let's look at our objectives. So, one of the things that I've really been thinking about and working on this summer is being very clear in our expectations and how things are going to run. And so, we're going to have some expectations. I'm going to put that up here just a second and talk through that. We're moving to a system of benchmarks, and I'm going to talk about that as well. We're changing a little bit on the new student and enrollees form, and I'll talk about some of those reasons. And then also to just the overall plan for this year. So, with that being said, we're going to kind of get started. And one of the main things is this is the expectations. One of the things I know is that if to be clear is to be kind. And so, and it's no one's fault, but as this role has evolved and grown in the district, we've never really put pen to paper about what are the exact expectations for you guys. And so I want to be really clear about that this year. And that way everyone knows these are things that are expected of you as you're working as an ML specialist. So as you're getting started, whether you're watching this evening or you're watching this tomorrow or maybe some other time, your number one priority right now, coming into this role, is obtaining new enrollee paperwork from the main office or guidance. And so, if you're new to your position, I know Melissa's talked to you about this, or if you're returning to your position, you need to have a very good relationship with your front office staff and the guidance office and determine what's going to be the best pathway for you to be able to come in, get the information you need, and be able to determine what's your next steps with anyone who has marked anything other than all English on the home language survey. And so when we look at this, that is a huge priority for the next few weeks. And you're going to spend a lot of time chasing paperwork and calling people, and that's going to be a big piece. So I just want to put that out there. That's coming. So just be prepared. Work with those front office folks, work with your guidance folks, and keep in constant contact of who has just moved in and enrolled. Then, once you've determined that the student has marked or the family has marked something other than all English on the home language survey, it becomes now time to determine if they have paperwork from an access, so a WIDA state, or do you need to complete a screener? If there is not a score from within the past calendar year, you will need to complete the screener for those students. And so that's an important piece for you to think about. And so with this, you need to be thinking and looking at the paperwork. And with this, we want to be very careful. The only time we're going to accept an access score is if they are from another WIDA state. And so be very, very careful of that. So then the next piece, once you've either one determined you're going to use that score from another state or another district, or you've completed a screener for the student, then you're going to complete our Google form. And we're going to look at that in just a few minutes and talk about that. And I want to remind everyone we're in the first beginning days of school. So that means we have 30 days to determine and get it entered into PowerSchool what each student's English proficiency score is for this school year. And so that is very important. One of the things that is new, and I would encourage you to look at this on the WIDA US site. With that, we have a new WIDA screener for an alternate version, which is brand new. And then we also have the continued spectrum of screeners that we've been offering. So, with this, one thing I will remind you is that we need to make sure that we have passed all of our assessment screeners for WIDA. So, when you go to WIDA US, you will have, and Melissa just emailed you guys this form, I think probably yesterday, a document that's reminding you of the link to go in and complete those little screeners that show that you have in fact passed the administration screeners so you can administer it and it be a valid score. So remember, one of the key things is go in, take those screeners and get that stuff completed. I will tell you the state is looking. Now at this point, and everybody needs to just understand from henceforth, the state has eyes into everything. And so when we think about what all is there, what all is in PowerSchool, you need to know somebody is looking at the state level. And so we want to make sure we get those screeners completed. And so if you find yourself not being able to, oh, well, I don't really have a lot of new students or everybody's kind of settled, then go ahead and knock out those screener tests and get that finished on the WIDA US site. Then once you've done that, then you're going to work on the ILAP. And one of the main things that we want to make sure is that we get that ILAP created and we send it out. And that's part of our parent notification. And the parent notification is one of the fields that we have to enter now on our new Google form, because without that, one of the things that students are seeing And one of the things that's in the system right now is that if we don't put the date we sent home parent notification, whether it's notification of services this year, notification of reclassification because the student scored high enough on access in the spring to move out of that traditional service model into monitored status, then we have to go ahead and mark that information and keep up with when did we let the parents know. And so that's very important. So that's a key piece for us this year. And then the next thing is if your school does not already make a schedule for you, you need to be working on that schedule in these next few days. How are you going to serve the students? Remember that consult is really one of those only and last ditch efforts. And so we are trying our hardest to make sure that we do not select that and that we're selecting the appropriate model for the students. So that's that. Um, Moving through the year, one of these expectations is that you're maintaining those monitoring forms from the classroom teachers, looking for those flags, and we'll talk about this more as we move on. Then you see the next bullet point, and this is the part that we're going to get into in just a second here, and that is progress monitoring assessments. We're going to look at this, so I'm not going to get into it at this moment, but I will just tell you it's something new that we're going to try. So that way we're a little bit more control of the narrative about our students and their progress rather than waiting until test score in May. So with that, one of the things as an ML specialist, it is expected that you attend the monthly lunch and learn meetings and that you are meaningfully engaged in the content. If you are not, then that is hurting others because we really need each other to be our very best in order for us to be the best team possible. And so that's important. The next is making sure that you have all of the accommodations for state assessments completed and to your guidance counselor, your test coordinator, whatever that person may be by January 15th. And so that's huge. At the high school, you're going to need to make sure that you have those accommodations completed before Halloween because those students that are getting ready to take an EOC in the fall, those students will have accommodations and those need to be ready to go by Halloween. Then the other piece, it is not an option. Everyone has to participate in access training, and so we have that scheduled. The next thing is that you're making a test schedule, minimizing classroom discussions, and then also making sure that you are talking to district and school administrators about those schedules and how they're working. The next is follow all test procedures that are in the manual. And then another is that you're maintaining and you're a voice of positivity to our families about the work that you're doing in our ML program. And then lastly, but not least, but make sure that we're following all the rules and procedures that's in the personnel manual and from the State Department's guiding principles. So these are the expectations, and I wanted to take a minute and kind of go through this. I just want people to be very clear and understand exactly what is expected when you're working as an ML specialist in Anderson 1. The next thing we're going to talk about is the topic of benchmarks. And I know that when you hear this, you're like, oh, but we're already testing so much. Okay, and that we do test a lot. But this piece is going to help us take a little bit more ownership of what's happening in our classroom with our students. So, with this, one of the things that really hit me was number one, WIDA recommends, and when you look at the scoring guide for WIDA access test, it talks about that really the score is more of an assessment of the program rather than the student's performance. And so when we think about that, a lot of pressure is placed, and this is because of the state accountability system. A lot of pressure gets placed on how are we moving kids based on these goals that were set by this Education Oversight Committee about 7 years ago, and how are they progressing? Are they progressing? Why are they not progressing? So, all of those questions. And it puts the pressure on. We're all waiting on one test that may or may not have the best situation for administration in January, February. One test that measures where kids are. We have zero control over anything except just administering the test. And then we need to know more about how our students are progressing in the course and in our work with them. And so I will tell you, and you guys know I've all been very transparent with y'all. A lot of schools are a little disappointed with their ML growth this past year on the report card. And when we look at that ML growth on the report card for us as a district, 207 out of 531 students met the growth that was expected for report card calculations. That is down from the previous year. And so we're not doing benchmarks because of that, but we're doing benchmarks because I want us as a team of educators to be able to speak clearly and articulately about what's happening with our ML students and their growth. And so we're going to focus only on writing this year. And so several of you have seen these products before in at conferences and things like that. And so I did not have the money to purchase one of every grade level because one, that's a lot of money, and two, we just yesterday found out that the Title III funds will be released because up until yesterday, this weekend, the state was pretty much telling us not to expect to get any Title III funds this year. And I use the Title III funds to take care of materials and needs that we have that are above and beyond the traditional program. And so with this, I've used some of our Title III funds to provide these materials. So what I've purchased is a series of the Finish Line product. And so this is an example from the screen from, I think it's middle school, if I remember correctly. This is from the middle school grade 6 section, and it has reading, writing, speaking, and listening prompts. And as you see here, a total of 10 in each one. And what we're going to do in our program for this year, we're going to focus on writing because writing is one of the large point makers towards the overall proficiency score. But we can also, there's another reason. When people ask, well, why are these kids just not making the growth that they're supposed to be making? And the schools will ask, and then they're like, well, what does it take? Well, we need to be able to answer that question clearly to our schools and to our teachers. And so, for us to have the best way for us to build our language and our approach to writing, and this example is reading on the left hand side, but the writing example is what I'm going to show you next. I want us as a team to become crystal clear and very clear in what it takes to score an exiting score on writing. And it's not about exiting, it's about making sure our students are prepared to exit and to grow beyond our program. We do not want our students to be stuck. And so we're going to take some pretty intentional steps this year. And so the first one is that when we meet together on our first meeting, we're going to spend some time and we're going to create some protocols in terms of how we're going to administer these benchmarks. And we're only doing the writing. So you would give writing. And if you do not see a student because they're this, that, or the other, you could use your win time. You could use flex time. You could use time to pull those students to get to know them a little bit more and then also administer this benchmark. For high school, we want to do it in the fall and then right before the end of the semester. And then after the semester, so in the new year in 2026, we would do it again in the beginning and then at the end. Because these have 10 examples, so in the fall we would do one, and then so like in this case, I'm going to say it's the going green at school. And then in the spring, so in January of 26, we would do the next one that's in the series. And so we're going to set this and we're going to spend some really big time on our first full day face to face meeting looking at these and going through it. Now, elementary and middle school, I want us to do them for 3 times a year, in the fall, before Christmas break, and then I want us to do it more towards the end of the school year, where that way we have knowledge about where these kids are hitting, and we can have a little bit more control in terms of saying, well, when they set the benchmark at the beginning of the year, they did this. And then at the begin in the middle, they did this, and this. And so that way, when administrators have questions about what are we doing in our program, we can answer that question with data and we can back it up. And so it's very important. This is a big shift, I know, and I was very nervous, but I've really thought a lot about it, and I feel like this is our best chance to help our students, but also better help educate people around us about what are we doing in our program. So when you look at this, you'll see there's a little passage here. And so we'll talk about specifics about the passage. And so this one has some decent reading. So we'll talk about how does that look? How are we going to agree as a team to administer this? And then over here, it gives us some questions about how are you going to answer this, plan your writing, and then they write it. And so this is what it looks like. It's not, oh, you're giving the full access battery. No, you're giving one portion at either twice a semester or 3 times during the full academic year. And we're going to use this, and it's going to help us learn and ground our work. And so this is what we're going to do. And I can tell you from talking to administrators and talking to other people, because I know you guys have wanted these sample items. Well, now we've got them, and you can use the others that's in there. You can use the listing. You can use all those domains that aren't going to be utilized. This is going to help us, though, one, get sample items in front of the kids, but also two, have a little bit more in the conversation about what does it look like. So benchmarks is it's a big piece, and I know it's a big change, but I think it is a necessary change to help us as we move forward in the program. Then our next one is new students and new enrollees. And so with this document, I want to remind you this is what you will submit once, let's say tomorrow, you're in your school and the front office says, hey, we just had a new enrollee, a new family come in, a new ML family, and we need to know, some information about them. Guess what? Once you've gathered the information about the student, you're going to come in here and you're going to put it in this chart and you're going to plug in the information. And so with this, Liz Stuckey will be, she is the administrative assistant for the instructional program in Anderson 1. And she will be helping do the coding this year because she's going to help me out, make sure we can stay on it a little better. Some of you remember at the end of the year when you got that spreadsheet from Miss Hayes looking at scores and who made their goal, who did not make their goal, and there were NAs. Well, what we learned is that the NAs existed because of these middle columns right here. The date ML support was initially started. So you're like, oh my Lord, that's going to be so hard to find. Some of this is going to be hard to find. Not going to lie. We're going to do our best. But let's say you can't determine when this kid first received ML services. Well, then look to see if you can determine when was their first time in a school and it looks like they might have had some sort of support. And we're going to put that date in. And that's what we're going to put. That field was what was creating all those NAs. The other piece that was creating all those NAs was the piece of when did you send home parent notification? And so remember, we have to send home parent notification with the ML score, with the access scores but within 30 days of the start of the school year. And then once the school year starts, it's 14 days. Now, earlier you'll notice it said 10, but I left it at 10 because I wanted us to be reminded it's a really quick turnaround. Once we get past that first 30 days of school, it's a quick turnaround. So please keep in mind that you've got to look at this information and you've got to put all of these pieces in when you submit a new student and that needs to be updated in PowerSchool. Now, you're like, oh, Christy, but I can't print my iLap because the iLap will say pending. You can go in to your iLap and manually change the English proficiency code. Now, it won't stick. Once you finish the day and the next day you come back, it'll be changed back. But you can change that for the express purposes of printing your iLaps to send home. So it's okay, but just know this is super important because we need all of this information to keep us from having those incomplete test records. Okay, so this is the iLap form. Melissa has sent out some stuff about some videos to help you walk through some of those. Um, Everything is listed on her document. If you have further questions, you can always ask her, you can ask me, and I'll do my very best to help with any of those specific questions. So I'll just let you know this is where we are right now, and this lets us kind of have an idea of what that coding piece looks like. As of recording, I have not updated coding, and it's coming. We're working on a system to make it easier for the future, but for right now, it's not there. So just know that's not perfect yet. So then the next thing we're going to talk about is plans. So as our group has grown, and many of you realized last year, we tried to get it started, but I realized there were some hitches in the plan and that they needed to be addressed. And so to address those, I really thought about what could be our best structure. So our structure to our meetings are going to change. There will be a brief little piece, either in the middle, beginning, or end, somewhere where it's the informational things. But you're going to spend the bulk of your time in your collaborative team. With your collaborative team, you're going to address the content, but through your team. I will tell you, these teams have been very thoughtfully and methodically been put together. You'll notice that there's two asterisks next to one person's name in each group, and that means that is the individual who is the facilitator for your collaborative team. And then one asterisk indicates that's the individual that's going to keep up with what's happening in the meeting and make sure everything's posted and up to date. And so, with this is a new structure, and we will start this on our first meeting on August 21st, where we will work in our teams, one, to get to know each other, but also, two, to lay out the parameters for how we're going to administer these benchmarks. So, this is what our setup looks like. And so, with this, it is a new structure. I'm very excited. Your collaborative team facilitators will be leading the conversation rather than like myself or Melissa being at the board talking and then telling you to talk to each other. So, what I would encourage you is that it's a little different, but this is going to be our best way forward to help us as we continue to grow and also to help us continue to grow in our knowledge and practice. So, with that being said, this is just a little quick interview, or not interview, but a quick little video to go through some of the basics. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I have this up as a reminder. Our first meeting will be all day since we had to change, and we'll go from 8:30 to 2. I'll let you know for sure about the food status. Since we were going to have food at this one, we may be able to bump it to that one. I also will be in Columbia tomorrow to learn more about what's happening with the Title III funds, and that will give us some clarity. And so August 21st will be our first one, and it will be from 8:30 to 2. And then one final thing, take a minute and let me know what you think. I always love to know what people are thinking. What are their thoughts? It's not going to hurt my feelings. It helps me understand what I need to be thinking about to help make sure our program is as good as it can be, because I want us to be the best possible team that's in the state. And so, with that, I will say I'm excited as we get started this year. I wish we could have met face to face right at the beginning of the school year, but it didn't work out. So, this was the best that we can do for right now. This gives you a little bit of information about what are the things you need to be working on and what are the things you need to be thinking about as we get started. I wish you all the best. I look forward to seeing y'all at the opening session on Friday, and I can't wait for us all to be together as a whole group. If anything comes up, don't hesitate to reach out, and I appreciate everyone's time.